Join me in making this eclectic patterned bracelet out of seed beads and a few Delicas. Check out the material list below, grab all your supplies, and we'll get started. We're going to start the first part of this bracelet by picking up 15 Delicas. We're going to start with a stop bead here at the end. So go ahead and pick up that stop bead and leaving just a few inches of thread, of tail thread here at the end. And then an additional 14 beads to make up your 15. We're going to work with a square stitch. So I've got all 15 of my beads here, and my thread is coming out through that last 15th bead. I'm going to pick up one more Delica bead here, and I'm going to go through my last Delica, my 15th Delica, passing back through in the same direction where my thread is already passing. So just like I'm going, I'm going away from myself. And as I do that, that new Delica that I just picked up will be sitting directly next to the bead that I added that I just passed through. So I passed through my 15th Delica. I picked up a new Delica and then just took my thread back through that 15th Delica, working away from my stop bead. I'm going to take my needle and thread and go through that first bead. That's the first bead in that second row of square stitch that I'm adding. Now I like to work holding it this direction so that my stop bead is facing me, but you can hold it either direction as long as you're following the same pattern. I'm going to pick up a new Delica, and I'm going to pass through the 14th and the 15th Delica in that order, working away from my stop bead. And as I do that, I'm going to pull, and that second Delica now that's in my new row of square stitch is going to sit right next to that 14th bead. And I'm going to pass through the first and second bead here in my new row, pick up one more Delica, and I'm going to pass down through the 13th, 14th, the 13th and 14th Delica in the first row. And now on the new row here, I'm coming towards myself, and I'm passing through the second and the third Delica. And as I do this, I want to make sure that my thread is sitting between the Delicas, and I can't see any thread showing. I'm going to continue doing this in this pattern until I get to the end, until I get to this first Delica bead here, which is also my stop bead. So one more time here, picking up a Delica, passing through, which is getting bad at counting backwards. It is my 13th, it's my 12th, 12, 13, 14, 15. So it's my 12th and my 13th bead. And then going down through the two Delicas in the new row. So continue this way, following these same steps until you get all the way to the end here, back to your stop bead. And then we're going to add another row or two, depending on just how thick you want this first section here of your bracelet to be. So go ahead and continue down to that 15th bead, back to the end here, and then we're going to make a little U-turn and work back the other direction. So I've now finished doing my second row of the square stitch, and I'm going to continue here doing a couple more rows following the same exact pattern. You'll notice here that in the one that I have started, I have 3 rows of that square stitch showing, but one row is actually covered in this Delica slide holder. So if you want to have 3 rows showing, you're actually going to have to make 4 because one is actually going to be disappeared into the holder here. So I'm going to continue and do another 2 rows to match the sample piece that I have over here, which shows 3 rows minus the 1 in the slide bar here. So I'm going to continue here adding 2 more rows. And just to get you guys started, I'm coming out that second row, and I'm going to pick up 1 Delica and go back through that last Delica in the previous row. Keep that tail thread out of the way. And I'm going to go down through the new Delica that I just added. Pick up another Delica, and I'm going to go up through the last 2 seed beads, the last 2 Delicas in that previous row, and down through the first 2 in the row that I'm adding. Picking up 1 more Delica, and I'm going through the 13th and 14th Delicas on that previous row. And then going back down through the 2nd and 3rd on the new row. So this is the same exact pattern. I'm just adding on a new row, and I'll continue with this, and then I'll continue until I finish this and 1 more row for a total of 4 rows of that square stitch. Now that I've done my 4 rows of square stitch, I'm going to add the first row into my Delica holder, my slide here. So I've actually found that the best way to do this is to take my needle and to put my needle through that first row of Delicas, the row that's going to the row that I'm going to slide into my tube here. The tube has an opening here, slit down the center, and that opening is going to sit around, so this tube is going to sit around the first row of my Delicas. So as I take my slide here, my tube, I want that opening to sit right in the little divot between the 2 rows of square stitch. And if I put my needle through those beads, it will help hold them stiff so I can work this slide down my Delicas. And once you get it there, go ahead and take your needle out. And now you've got 15 Delicas that are inside the tube. And you've got this bar that's holding those, kind of sitting around them, sort of like cuddling around them, holding them. And you've got 3 additional rows that are now coming out from there. The sides here, we're just going to push those down. So you can use some pliers and bend those inward. And I've tried all kinds of methods to get these nice and tight. But you just want to make sure that you're not nicking up any of your metal here. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a little hammer, or I'll push it in with my pliers, or I'll take something that is stiff like a bench block, and I'll just kind of like hammer this down to get the end nice and flat. So once you have this part done, we're going to start building our bracelet off of that and create the center section here that will create that beautiful multicolored bracelet. I'm now ready to start building the strands that will span between the 2 ends of my bracelet. So if you want to, you can go ahead and create both of those ends. And you can see here I already have one of my strands started here. But go ahead and create both ends, and then we'll start by creating a first strand and connecting to the other end on the other side. So here I'm going to start with a herringbone stitch. I'm coming out the last Delica here on the very end, and I'm just going to pick up 4 of my seed beads. I've now brought out 4 different colors of 11 Miyuki seed beads. And I'm doing this in sort of a mosaic, sort of random pattern, but you can come up with a color pattern if you'd like, or use one color. It's up to you. So I'm going to start by picking up 4 of my seed beads, and I'm going to pass through the last 2 Delicas in this row. Pass up through the first 2 11-0s. So now I should have 2 11-0s sitting right next to each other. I'm going to pick up another 2 11-0s. And again, I'm just doing a very random pattern here. And go down through the 2 11-0s on the other side. I'm going to flip this here. It's a little bit easier for me to work with my work facing this way. So I'm coming out that third seed bead. I'm coming out between the seed bead and the Delicas. I'm going to skip 1 seed bead and pass up through the next 2 seed beads. And once I'm coming out the top of that seed bead, I'm going to pick up another 2 seed beads, go down through the first 2 seed beads on the other side. And now I'm going to flip here because I always like to kind of work with my with the portion that I'm working on towards my right hand. So I'm going to kind of flip back and forth. But now coming out of my third seed bead here, I'm going to skip that third seed bead and I'm going to go through the top 2. And again, I'm going to flip here because it's a little easier for me. And I'm going to continue with this herringbone pattern, picking up 2 new seed beads, down through 2 on the other side, skip 1 and go up through the last 2. And that is a very simple little herringbone pattern that I can use to make a length of herringbone that will reach the other side of my bracelet. So I'm not going to connect it to this little piece that I have started. I'm going to connect it to here on the other side. So I'm going to continue this until I get the length that I need to make the overall length of the bracelet that I want. And then I'll connect to this side, and then I'll start another length of herringbone and come back to this piece here. Now you have a total of 15 of our Delicas here. And if you noticed, I'm making my herringbone off of pairs. So I'm going to have an uneven amount of seed beads or of Delicas here with that 15. So I can't make an even number of, I can't pair them up evenly to make just little herringbone sections or lengths. So I'm going to mix it up. I might do some that are just strung across so that I'm not, so that I have some variety in there, and also so that I don't have an odd Delica out if I'm trying to make it completely even with the herringbone. And of course, I can't make it even. I have 15 and I would need 14 or 16 to pair those up for the herringbone. So hopefully you understood what I was trying to say there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make 1 length of herringbone that reaches the length of the bracelet that will make that kind of establish that length for me. And then from there, I can continue making more lengths of herringbone. I can do stringing. I can do whatever I want in between to fill up the space between my 2 ends here. So you can see here that I've made a long length of herringbone, and I've been switching up the pattern a little bit. I started with a very mosaic, very random pattern, and then I went into some like color blocking and striping because I thought that was really fun, and I wanted to do something different because as I add more strands to this, I'll have them look a little bit different and just kind of have that very sort of boho, like organic look. So here we go with my length of herringbone. And all I'm going to do at this point is attach it to the other end of my bracelet here. So on the other end here, which I've already created, I'm going to attach the end of my herringbone to the same 2 Delicas. And if you see, if I match them up here, I'm going to attach the end of my herringbone to the same 2 Delicas as I've attached them to on the first side of my bracelet. So here, just the last 2 Delicas, and I'm going to add to the last 2 Delicas on this side as well. And you want to make sure that you're lining it up here so that if you're coming out through this length of your seed beads here, the side of your herringbone that's on the outside of your piece, you want to start going through your Delicas from the outside so that they sit correctly. And then we're going to go back through 2 seed beads of the herringbone on the other side here. And if you've done that correctly, it should just be a mirror image of what you have on the first end where you started. And I'm going to go up through the 2 seed beads here on the outside. Through the 2 Delicas where I'm attaching. And I'm going to do this one more time just to reinforce this. So go down through 2 seed beads, up through 2 of that herringbone, and through the 2 Delicas. Now I'm going to start a new length of herringbone. I can pass through the next 2 Delicas as well, so that I'm now coming out of the next 2 Delicas, and I'm in position here to start a new row of herringbone. If I don't want to do herringbone, if I want to do just simple, a little bit of simple stringing, I can go just one Delica over. So I'll backtrack here and go back through that Delica. So now I'm coming out just 1 Delica past where I've attached my herringbone. And I can do something like basic stringing. And I want to make sure that I keep my ends aligned at all times so I don't get them twisted, so I don't get my my strands twisted as I create more strands. You can introduce any kind of bead that you want to this, anything that's going to be small enough to fit in here comfortably, or you can do just a simple little string of beads, and you can just pick up a number of seed beads here in whatever kind of pattern that you want. I might mimic, to start out here, I might kind of mimic what I have here in my herringbone, but then I might mix it up a little bit too. So we'll see. You can also use something like 3mm, 2 or 3mm beads, really anything that's small enough that will not look too chunky and won't be too big and heavy for your bracelet. So I'm going to continue here and just do a stringing portion here and show you what that looks like. I've now finished a simple stringing section of my bracelet, and you can see here I started on this side, and now I'm going to go ahead and attach to my other end here. I'm going to do this in the same way that I attached the herringbone, but I'm going to just go through that 1 seed bead, that 1 Delica, instead of 2, because I'm only anchoring this particular strand to 1 Delica. So I'm going through that Delica, and then I'm going to go back through all of my seed beads in this strand. When you do the herringbone, and make sure you don't get things tangled, when you go through the herringbone, or when you make a length of herringbone, you've got quite a bit of thread running through there, and so it makes the piece more stiff. It makes that strand stiffer. But when you're doing stringing, you just have 1 piece of thread running through your beads. So I like to go back through again to give this single strand some of that same stiffness that the herringbone has. So you don't have some strands that are more floppy and some that are less floppy. So just working my way here through all of the seed beads in this stringing section. And when I get to the other side, I'll pass through my Delica, and then I will pass through either 1 or 2 Delicas depending on if I want to start another simple stringing section, a little bit of simple stringing, or if I want to do the herringbone, then I'll pass through 2. So here, and I've made it all the way to the other end, and I'm just going to make sure that I have everything the way that I want it, that I don't have any slack in my thread. So pull tight and make sure you don't have any slack. And if you got the length incorrect, you can always add more beads. If you're just doing simple stringing, it's not really a big deal to kind of undo it a little bit, add some more beads, and go back. So now I've got, I'm to the other end here, and I'm going to go through the Delica where I'm anchoring my bead. I'm going through that Delica from one end to the other, and I'm passing through the Delica and then on through to passing through the next 2 seed beads, the next 2 Delicas, because I'm going to do another length of herringbone. So you can see here now I have my completed second row. I think I made this a little bit short, so I might add another bead in there and redo this, but that is basically what we're going to do here the whole way around, the whole way from one side to the other. And we're going to keep working this. Now you can, if you want to, you can braid these, you can overlap them. I'm going to try not to do that. That's not what I'm going to do on this bracelet. So as you work, you want to make sure that you keep your lengths nice and flat and you don't overlap, unless of course that is your intention. So keep going with this, either working on the herringbone or basic stringing, and fill up this whole space between your two ends. I now finished all of my strands and I've connected them to the square stitch ends on either side. You can see that I have a very eclectic kind of pattern here, and I like that. I like that it looks like strips of fabric, sort of like a quilt, like a crazy quilt, or strips of fabric that we just piece together from different things. So I love that kind of quality about it. So the very, very last thing that we need to do here is just simply add a clasp, and that's going to be super easy for this project. I have a couple of jump rings, and this is a size 6 or 6mm jump ring. And then I also just have a toggle clasp. So to open and close my jump rings and add the clasp, I'm just going to take one of my jump rings here, and I'm going to grip the jump ring on either side of that little split and twist it open, kind of like you're untwisting or pulling out a slinky. I'm going to connect to the hole on one side of my bracelet and then just put on whichever end of the clasp that you have nearby and close that up so that both sides of the jump ring come back together. So we're simply just connecting a clasp with our jump rings. And on the other side here, again, I'm just going to take my jump ring and twist this open just like a little slinky. Connect the other side of my clasp as well as the other side of the bracelet through those loops, grip, and then twist back to complete that jump ring so it's one continuous circle and I don't have any gaps there. And so that is our completed bracelet. Once you use a clasp like this, it adds about an inch or so to your overall length of the bracelet. So you're going to make your total length of the beaded section about an inch shorter than you really need the full length of the bracelet to be. And then you won't be making your bracelet too big once you've added the clasp on. So you just want to make sure that you're considering the length of that clasp at the beginning. So there you have it. I hope you guys enjoy, and share with us your version of this on Facebook. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Please leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts on the project. If you're also interested in more tutorials just like this one, click on that subscribe button so that you're notified as soon as we have new videos available.